Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into our coverage over Heroes Reborn. And so, with that being said, we're going to pick up with some Iron Man today because this is the last book that we have not officially talked about yet when it came to Heroes Reborn. We already did Avengers, Captain America, and also Fantastic Four. But now it's time for Iron Man to get involved in this world. Now, let's not forget, when it came to Heroes Reborn, it was technically a reboot for these characters because when it came to the late 1990s, as we all know, there were some comics out there that were not really selling. And so for Marvel Comics, they're like, this is a perfect chance to go ahead and do a reboot for those characters who are not really selling books anymore. And I kind of want to go ahead and do a quick reminder of what Heroes Reborn was, because when it came to those books not selling, Iron Man, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Captain America, you had all those different characters in the big event called X-Men Onslaught. But of course, you had the X-Men go up against Onslaught. But once you had the X-Men being able to defeat Onslaught, you had all these different characters run into him. And of course, they were all teleported into a brand new reality, better known as Heroes Reborn, as a way to kick off this reboot. And so when it came to Jim Lee, he was technically tasked to give us a fresh start for the Fantastic Four, but also Iron Man in this brand new reality. So let's go ahead and kind of see what Jim Lee gave us when it came to his Iron Man. Now, when it comes to the opening pages of this storyline, it does start off in the past where we do pick up with this character known as Rebel O'Reilly, really Connor Rebel O'Reilly, who was the best friend for Tony Stark. But when it came to Riley, what he was currently doing was testing out a brand new armor suit that Tony Stark had made. Of course, in this reality, it was called the Prometheum armor. And so while you had O'Reilly out there just testing out the suit, it began to malfunction. The problem was then after that, it blew up. And so, of course, it killed off Tony Stark's best friend who was testing out that brand new suit for him. And that one particular moment is going to carry over into the rest of our story today, because as we jump over to the present day, we see that Tony Stark is now this heartless and ruthless businessman. Like he just got out of a class action suit that was launched by the people of the state of New York. Of course, he was found not guilty. And so you now have the working class just protesting. And the reason why, because they believe the verdict was unfair, that basically Tony Stark got cleared because he is a rich person. Now, of course, while you have all this happening on live television, you do have these few security guards who work at one of his plants in Buffalo, New York. Now, one of the employees, he just goes crazy when he finds out that Tony Stark is, well, innocent, and he begins to rant about revolution and power, and then out of nowhere he goes ahead and kills off the rest of the guards that he was hanging out with. But then he radios in to his masters, and of course this brings in Hydra into the Heroes Reborn reality. But also the person tells him we now can proceed with Operation Gamma. And so this leads us over to Tony Stark, right? Now for Tony, we see him right now at his penthouse getting ready for a big celebration, right? And so right now you have Jim Lee kind of using this as a way to introduce all the different characters you're going to see in his run on Iron Man. So you had a scientist, Bruce Banner, head of security, Liz Ross, public relations being Happy Hogan, Stark's personal secretary being Pepper Potts. You have a psychiatrist, Leonard Sampson, his lawyer, Jennifer Walters, and his government liaison, Jasper Sitwell. Now, for all these different characters, for most of them, they don't like the idea of Tony Stark going out of his way to celebrate the fact that he just won in court. It does seem kind of, the wrong thing to do, especially right now when you have the working class protesting about him. Now, for a brief moment, I kind of want to shift our focus over to Bruce Banner. And here's the reason why, because you have Bruce right now looking at this photo. It's an old photo of him, Reed Richards, Rebel, who died in the past, Tony Stark and of course Victor, better known as Doctor Doom. And apparently they were all close friends. Now, this connection right here will become very important for the rest of the Heroes Reborn storylines that we have to cover. Either way, you do have Liz and Bruce go ahead and join the rest of the crew for Tony Stark's party of the night. And really, once you have Tony begin to celebrate, really more, you have Tony start off the party with a speech. You have Pepper Potts be that person to speak up against him, because to her, what Tony is doing is completely wrong. Like, you have all of these different people right now protesting against you. They want you gone. And here you go right now because you want in court that you believe that you deserve some kind of party. And so you have Pepper go out of her way and throw a drink at Tony. And of course, embarrassing him in front of all his different guests that came to the party tonight. But then for a brief moment, we do jump back over to the Buffalo plant. And when we do, we pick up with Madam Hydra. We see her being able to break into the actual facility, but we also see her getting close to the Gamma Chamber, this weapon that she plans on using. And so with Madam Hydra being there, of course, you do have Liz Ross be informed of some kind of breach. Now, for Bruce Banner, he wants to go with her. And the reason why, because his brand new weapon, the Gamma Bomb, is actually over there as well. So, of course, you do have the two characters lead to see what's going on at the Buffalo plant. But then we shift back over to Pepper Potts, right? Now for Pepper, she does try one last time to break through the shell that Tony Stark put around him, where now he's just emotionless. And so it's her right now trying to have him open up. But for Tony, he continues that trend by telling Pepper that she is officially fired. So just like that, she now has to leave. But right after that, you have Samson try his best to hopefully break through Tony, because with him being his psychiatrist, you think like, okay, Simpson might find a way to enter the mind of Tony, to break through Tony, to hopefully have Tony realize the path he's on right now is the completely wrong path to be on. But of course, Tony stays in that emotionless shell that he put himself in, unfortunately. And so while you have all those different characters trying their best to break through Tony's shell, for Liz and Bruce, they do arrive at the Buffalo plant. Now, when they do arrive at the plant, you have the people in the command tower ask Liz to identify herself. And for Liz, she's like, we never do that, especially when it comes to me. And so you have Liz take over the helicopter and just start shooting at the command tower, because she now knows the plant has been officially taken over by somebody else. Of course, we already know it's Hydra. Now, when it comes to Madam Hydra, she has somebody else on that chopper with Bruce and Liz. And so, of course, Liz is knocked out. But back at the party, right, you have Jasper right now being the last person to talk to Tony about his emotions, about his behavior. And really, when it comes to Tony, he's not really being talked to in a way like Pepper did earlier, or like the other characters did. Because for Jasper, he's kind of like, dude, Tony, you're Tony Stark. You can build an empire in a day. Like, you're at that point in your life, you're so high up in the high class that the whole idea of good and evil no longer applies to you and I, because we have so much power, but so much great things to do in this world. Now, for Jasper, that is when he's also alerted about what's happening right now at the Buffalo plant. And so, of course, he leaves. Now, for Tony, he wants to go as well, so he does. Now, as we jump back over to the plant, we do discover here that really Bruce Banner is working with Hydra. And the reason why, because he believed that Hydra would help him dismantle the Gamma Bomb, because he realized how dangerous it is. But here's the thing. It's Madam Hydra, an evil organization leader. There's no way she would like, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and dismantle this bomb. No. And so, of course, she tells Bruce, actually, I have a better idea. Let's go ahead and set the bomb off. Now, you do have Bruce try to stop her, but of course, Bruce cannot stop her, so he gets quickly knocked out. Now for Liz, she does wake up, and when she does wake up, she realizes what's happening at the moment. That Bruce is right now inside the actual bomb. And so of course, she's right now trying to get him out of the bomb, but she can't get the code to work. Now, once you do have Bruce wake up, he realizes what's happening at the moment, that currently he's inside the gamma bomb. But right now, he also realizes the failsafe has been turned off. So if this bomb goes off, millions of people are going to be affected by gamma radiation. And so for Bruce, he kind of realized he has no choice here. You see, they're in a silo right now. And so he is able to drop the bomb 13 miles into the earth. Of course, he's also inside the bomb as well. So just like that, he says goodbye to Liz, and there is a small explosion. Now, when Tony and also Jasper arrive where the plant used to be at, the plant is completely destroyed, but they do see this crater, but they also see this green creature coming out where the plant used to be at. And so we're now getting our first appearance of Heroes Reborn Hulk. And so just like that, Bruce and the Hulk in this reality. Now, real quick, I kind of want to explain things when it came to the idea of Heroes Reborn. Let me explain, because like I said earlier, you had different characters go into Onslaught, and with them doing that, they were transported into the Heroes Reborn universe. But when it came to Bruce Banner, the Hulk fought against Onslaught and defeated Onslaught alongside with the X-Men. Now, we were kind of left to believe the Hulk would not be affected by the Onslaught event because he didn't go into Onslaught like the Avengers or Fantastic Four did. But Bruce Banner was somehow teleported into this reality. And so with that being said, for Bruce Banner, in his reality, he's once again the Hulk. And you do have him throw a rock to bring the chopper that Tony and Jasper were on. Now we do see that Tony and Jasper did survive the crash, but you have Tony right now trying to drag Jasper away from the crash site. But while doing that, you have Jasper point out that Tony got stabbed by one of the falling pieces of the chopper. So of course right now the man needs some help, some medical help. Now we also learn here that for Tony, there was such a reason why he had his plant shut down many years ago, because this is the same place that his best friend died at the very beginning of the storyline, O'Reilly. But also, this is where he kept another Iron Man armor suit. And so we see Tony using that suit as a way to kind of keep him alive long enough to allow him to get back over to a hospital. But first, he has to handle a situation, and that would be the Hulk. And so to wrap up the first chapter of this brand new not brand new, but this old Jim Lee Iron Man series, it leads into issue number 2, where it's going to be Iron Man fighting against the Hulk. And so this leads us into the second issue of this series, where it's now going to be the Hulk going up against Iron Man. Now, for Tony Stark, he does not call himself Iron Man. Matter of fact, it's the Hulk who calls him Iron Man because of the way he looks. But either way, when it comes to Tony, he realized that currently the Hulk is holding on to Liz. Now, for Tony, he has no idea what exactly happened yet so far, but he does know one thing. He got to stop the Hulk as a way to free Liz. So you do have Hulk being able to do some damage at first on Tony, but you did have Tony find a way to briefly knock out the Hulk. Now, with the Hulk being knocked out for a few seconds, it allows Tony and Liz to have a conversation about what exactly happened here at this facility. And so this kind of leads into Liz explaining things to Tony like, hey, listen, so you had the gamma bomb, you had Bruce try his best to save the day, you had Hydra trying to take over this facility. Like, she gives Tony the full breakdown. But the thing is, Tony and also Liz have not realized that the Hulk is Bruce Banner. But either way, you do have the Hulk wake back up. And when he does, just like that, it's now time for round 2 for Tony to fight against the Hulk. Now, while you do have the two characters fighting against one another, you have Tony realize that the armor suit he's currently wearing at the moment right now can't take too many more hits from the Hulk. And that kind of shows how powerful the Hulk is right now at this point in time. Now, this battle does take place near Niagara Falls. And the reason why I'm bringing that up because at the very end of this one particular issue, you do have Tony realize he's losing power at the moment. And so what he does, he pulled out a live wire as a way to recharge himself a tad bit, but it also used that live wire as a way to shock the Hulk. Now, with him doing that, you do have both Hulk and Iron Man get knocked out. But both characters, they do fall into Niagara Falls, kind of leaving us wondering like what in the world could possibly happen to Tony down the road. And so as we dive into the third issue, we're really picking up with the Fantastic Four arriving at the site, the Buffalo site, to figure out what exactly went down. Because the Hulk and Tony had officially disappeared. And so with them both being gone, it's Fantastic Four right now figuring out what exactly happened here. Now for Reed, let's not forget, him and Tony were best friends back in college. And matter of fact, that's very important because you have Jasper just walk up and say, you know what, I kind of find it weird that Reed Richards, Tony's old college best friend, had only came back in his life once he had disappeared. Like it's him saying that Reed may had a hand in Tony disappearing. But either way, for all the characters there, they have not put two to two together like, hey, you know what? There's a possibility that Iron Man is Tony Stark. In their mind, Iron Man and Tony are two completely different people. But either way, for Fantastic Four, their main goal right now is to find, well, Tony Stark. And so that kind of leads us over to Pepper Potts. Now remember, she got fired earlier by Tony. And so of course right now, it's her just trying to figure out what's next for her life. But then she hears a noise. Now, as she does walk towards the noise in her house, she does tell us that when it came to the Buffalo plant, only two people knew about the armor being there, Tony and also Pepper Potts. And so, of course, Pepper, once she does go find Iron Man in her garage, she definitely knows it's Tony Stark inside the armor, who, of course, right now needs her help because the armor suit was keeping him alive. That suit right now is beginning to lose power. Now we do transition over to Madam Hydra, and really these 2 pages are really put there as a way to kind of help us to world build, to bring in more characters in this overall storyline for Heroes Reborn. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when it comes to Madam Hydra, she's very upset about the fact that somebody's late for a meeting. And when kind of find out that person is no other than Whirlwind. Of course, a good old classic Marvel villain who's now being, reworked in this Heroes Reborn reality. And so now we transition back over to Pepper and Tony. Now for Pepper, it's her goal right now to take Tony over to a different plant, the one in Westchester. And the reason why, because to allow Tony to find a way to power the suit back up as a way to save his life. Here's the problem with that though. You see, for Pepper, she got fired by Tony in the first chapter. So the guard right now, who's currently letting her in the facility, he has no idea that she got fired. But once he does find out that she no longer works for Stark, that means their time is very limited. And so she has to hurry, get Tony inside, get him all hooked up, and hopefully get that suit repowered to keep Tony alive. And that kind of leads into a situation because moments later, you do have Pepper hook up Tony to the device, right? And it's powering him back up again, allowing him to stay alive. But here's the thing, they're in the lower part of this plant. But the very top part of the plant is the Fantastic Four. And of course, right now, they're getting readings about what's happening at the lower part of this plant. And so you do have Ben Graham just rush down there, making a hole into that room. Now, you do have Tony trying his best to fight against the Thing to protect Pepper, but you also have Reed appear as well. Now, once you do have everyone just chill out, you have Tony realize that as Reed Richards right there, who's now the leader of Fantastic Four, but also his old college friend. Like I said earlier, for everyone who has saw Iron Man fight against the Hulk, they have not put 2 to 2 together, meaning that they don't know that Iron Man is Tony Stark. And for Pepper, she believes it's probably best that no one knows that Iron Man is Tony Stark, because you do have Pepper tell the Fantastic Four like, hey, listen, so this is Iron Man and he's Tony Stark's bodyguard. And you have Iron Man saying like, oh yeah, that's right, I am his bodyguard. And matter of fact, Tony is in the other room right now, let me go ahead and get him for you. And so you do the whole like classic trope where you have the superhero disappear, but you didn't have the actual person appear. Again, no one is able to put two to two together. So it's like, oh, there goes Iron Man, and here comes Tony Stark. Now for Tony, it's him beginning to change because remember, at the very beginning of the storyline, he was very emotionless, heartless. And now it's him kind of going back to his old ways. It's kind of like him being Iron Man had brought him back to his old ways again, which means we're going to see more of Tony being Iron Man in this reality. Now, with all that being said, the book does not end on that note right there because we do shift over to another character who's about to make an appearance in the Heroes Reborn universe. Because now we shift over to Arthur Parks. Now, when it comes to Arthur Parks, he had a company. The problem was Stark bought the company and sold the company. And so, of course, for Arthur, he was basically left with nothing. And so he's very upset by that. And so now it's Arthur doing one last experiment on him as a way to go after Tony. Most likely turning himself into the living laser. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.